have the Denver Nuggets in 5, and I'm sticking to it. Again, a lot of credit to Eric Spoelstra for coming out and playing the defense that they did. Jokic, whenever he scores 40 points or more, believe it or not, the Denver Nuggets don't win much. So it's evident. I think it's a chess game right now, and Denver needs to come out and make sure that their role players are getting those assists and those lanes are open. I just don't believe that the Miami Heat is going to be that great. So I'm sticking with my 5. Welcome into your Friday edition of Bet. Different hairstyle than when I predicted the Nuggets would win in 5, but we did it. I watched it. I was on vacation. This is my first day back here at ESPN, here on Bet, and I'll be on Daily Wager a little bit later on. But I was watching the Denver Nuggets win Game 5, win the championship at a little watering hole in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and was absolutely thrilled. We've got a great show lined up for you. Dre Snellings is going to join me in just a hot second. We'll talk some NBA and a number of other things coming your way. Also, we've got Buster Olney. Major League Baseball, it's front and center. It is front stove right now because everything else was finalized in 5 games. So excited to get Buster Olney on the program as well. Let's bring in Dre. Dre, not only did I predict the Denver Nuggets in 5, but dude, you picked the winner, the male and the female winners of the French Open. So congrats to you too, man. We're living large these days.
Yeah, that was a great show. I hope that people were watching and taking the advice of that show, because if so, then everyone should be a little bit richer than they were coming in.
Absolutely. All right, so it is Friday, so we like to play a little good word with you. Here we go. The U.S. women soccer is about to start. We're about a month away, maybe a little too soon, not for me. I can't wait. The U.S. women favored plus 250 to win the World Cup. What's your good word?
Run it. Because the U.S. Women's national team has won a full half of all World Cups that they've ever had, including the last 2 straight in 2015 and 2019. This season, the U.S. Women's national team is an undefeated 7-0. They're the number 1 ranked team according to FIFA. And as Patrick Mahomes says in his recent commercial, the U.S. Women's national team is used to dominating on stages even larger than the Super Bowl. So when I see that I can get them at not just plus money, but at plus 230 or plus 250, oh yeah, run it.
So my good word is rip snorter. Why? Well, it's being held in Australia and New Zealand. Rip snorter is an Australian slang for playing a good game of sport, and we know this is a USA women's team that's favored, and for good reason. You know, it's one of the few sports, or I should say more so than the men, right, where the team, USA women's team, is so dominant. You've got England, you've got Spain, you've got Germany. Really surprised, Dre, that Brazil's not up there in the top 5 in regard to the odds. That's a little surprising to me, but man, this U.S. women's group, they've got a nice mix of veteran players that are coming back for this round and some fresh young talent. There's a household name. It's going to become a household name, and that is Sophia Smith. So get ready for that. I cannot wait for the Women's U.S. Open or World Cup, I should say, to start in soccer. All right, Jokic, right? Now, you know, I was really bitter. He didn't win the NBA MVP last season. Right now, you could wager in 2024 for him to win the MVP at plus 450. Dre, what's your good word?
Value. So let me take it to fantasy basketball for a second. For the last 3 seasons, Jokic has been way the number 1 producer in fantasy hoops in all 3 seasons. And he won the MVP in 2 of those 3. Anita, as you pointed out, he came up short. He finished second last season, but that was fighting into the huge headwinds of perception, of people saying one person can't win the MVP 3 straight seasons without being a champion. Well, now he's a champion, and he's coming off one of the most dominating postseason performances that we've ever seen. So when you put that together with the fact that he's extremely likely to average the triple-double this season that he came 0.2 assists short of last season, And just the universal perception right now that Jokic is the best player in the NBA, if he's able to stay healthy, which he always has, then he has a really good chance to win his third MVP in 4 seasons, and that's value.
So my good word is redemption. And I truly believe that he was very deserving last year. I think a big reason why, the Denver Nuggets, as we know, West Coast time, typically their games, they're tipping off at 10:30 at night on the East Coast, and a lot of people don't watch. If I had $1, Dre, for every person who came up to me and said, "Oh, Anita, are you watching these NBA Finals? Jokic, this guy's unbelievable. Where did he come from?" And I'm like, this is what he's been doing all season long. This is nothing new, especially on their home court. He would average triple doubles. So it's redemption for me. That's the word. I think for sure this Denver Nuggets team, they're locked and reloaded. They're going to run it back. Now they even got the experience. And I think obviously they're going to be more popular this coming season because they won the championship. And I think more people are going to stay up later, Dre, to watch them play. So redemption is my word. Last but not least, Coco Gauff, 12-1 to win Wimbledon. You're a tennis guy. What's your good word?
Breakthrough. Because in order to make this bet, you would be betting that you could guess when Coco's breakthrough to win a major will finally occur. She's become a regular in the second week of the majors, and she's still only 19 years old. I feel like I've been watching her forever. So it feels inevitable that someday she'll break through and win that elusive first major. But it seems unlikely that Wimbledon is where that breakthrough will occur. She's had by far her most success in the majors in the clay of the French Open. She's even made the quarters of the hard court of the U.S. Open. But she's never been past the 4th round on the grass of Wimbledon. I might bet personally that she makes the quarters of this year's Wimbledon. I made just such a bet recently in the French Open, much to my profit. But I'm not quite ready to put significant money on her breaking through to win it all on the grass of Wimbledon. Not this year.
Yeah, so I just totally agree with everything you just said. My good word is hype. I just think that there's a lot of hype around Coco, and understandably so, right? Especially for us Americans here, we want to see another female American like Venus and Serena to really rise to the occasion and be a force to be reckoned with in the tennis world. If you look at the Wimbledon, I'm not sure if you've seen it yet, Dre, but the Wimbledon poster, she's front and center. She's the first woman in front of everybody else. And again, as you pointed out, she's never made it past the 4th round. And of course, she was 15 years old. And of course, that was the year that she beat Serena. But nonetheless, I just think that there is a lot of hype around her, which in turn, to me, I think is going to force her to feel a lot more pressure coming into Wimbledon this season. All right, it's time to play a little place or pass, NFL style, right? I know we're about the end of July is when training camps open up, rookies start arriving, but never a dull moment and never too soon to start talking about the NFL. So play or pass, Dre. Lamar Jackson will have a game where he will pass for 400 yards or more at any point in time this season, and you could get that at +125. Play or pass?
Pass. I'm going to pass on this one because I recognize that the Ravens have added pieces to the outside and they plan to do more passing this season than they have in previous years. But even with all that said, Jackson has literally one 400-yard game in his entire career. Outside of that one game, which happened 2 years ago, he's never even gone over 330 passing yards in any game in the entire rest of his career. So with that being the case, I would need more juice than +125 to bet on what would be a pretty big career anomaly happening in just this next season.
No, Dre, we are on opposite ends of the spectrum here. I am running to the window to place this. This is a Ravens franchise, keep in mind, that now just committed $180 million in guaranteed money to Lamar Jackson. They draft Ray Flowers in the 1st round, right? They bring in OBJ. They bring in Aguilar, which is very interesting. They're trying him out as well at running back. I think the backfield's going to be a really big part of their passing attack as well. They've got Bateman. They've got Mark Andrews coming in healthy. And I love Isaiah Likely. So he has a plethora of weapons to work with. And I do believe that they are going to run a more even, balanced offense. And they're not going to run the ball as much. I think this is going to be a very pass-happy team with Lamar Jackson. And their schedule, the Texans, the Colts, the Cards, the Rams, some very favorable opponents. And I think one of those 4 games, I think he very well could pass for 400 yards or more. So I am placing that bet, sir. Jamar Chase, wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, 100 receiving yards in 8+ regular season games. You can get that around even money. Place or pass?
This one I'm placing. And I'm placing it because Chase is coming into his magical 3rd year as a wide receiver. That's what we used to call it in fantasy sports. Because wide receivers, a lot of times in their 3rd seasons, just take off compared to what they've done before. And Chase's former LSU teammate and friend and rival, Justin Jefferson, just got done with his magical 3rd season in which he turned in 10 games of 100 receiving yards or more and 11 games with at least 98 yards. I'm looking at Chase, who last season really dealt with injury for most of the season. He only played 12 games. And in those 12, he had 4 games of 100 yards or more and a 5th game of 97 yards or more. This season, the entire Bengals offense just looks like it's poised to take off. Joe Burrow is comfortable. They've worked on their offensive line. I'm expecting really big things from Jamar Chase, so I am placing this bet.
Interesting. So full disclosure, I know we've talked about this on the show. We've had Ben Baby on the program. I love Cincinnati. Cincinnati is my Super Bowl pick. And I think you're right. I think their offense is going to explode. But dude, 8 regular season games where he's putting up 100 receiving yards, that's a lot. He only had 4 last season. Now, if you were to tell me 8 games where he's going to have more than 6.5 receptions, I'm running to the window to place that. But I think this is too hefty. And at even odds, not for me, baby. I am passing on this. Let's talk about Dallas. Any Dallas player to have 15+ receiving or rushing touchdowns this season. Are you placing or are you passing?
I'm passing on this one. The Cowboys had 2 12-touchdown running backs last year, and they also had a 9-touchdown receiver in CeeDee Lamb last year. And I know that Ezekiel Elliott isn't currently signed to the team, but Pollard has never carried the full load for a full season. And there's still a chance that they bring in another high-end running back to split some carries with Pollard. So if you asked me, is the Cowboys offense likely to be good this season? Yes. Will their skilled position players score a lot of touchdowns? I believe so. But any one to score 15 is a lot of touchdowns. So I am going to pass on that one.
Wow. You and I are just not on the same page today, but it makes for good TV, that's for sure. I am placing this. I love me some Tony Pollard. And everything that I'm hearing out of Dallas is that he's going to be ready for training camp, which means he's going to be ready for regular season game 1. With no Zeke for him to share that backfield, he had 12 total touchdowns last year for the Dallas Cowboys. So now you're telling me he's going to be the focal point in that backfield. He's an absolute stud superstar, can take the ball to the end zone at any given time. And he's going to be ready for camp. So I am placing that, and I would go one step further. And for me, that player is Tony Pollard. Last but not least, we've got to talk about Aaron Rodgers here in New York with the Jets. 4,000 passing yards, and the Jets make the playoffs. You can get that at +160. Are you placing? Are you passing?
Let's see if we can get on the same page with this one. I am placing this bet. Aaron Rodgers passed for 4,000 yards every season from like 2016 until last season, which was a down year, and he only, quote unquote, passed for about 3,700 yards last season. But with all of the energy and enthusiasm and pressure of him coming to the Jets and the offense kind of being built in his image, and again, the pressure being on his shoulders, and Rodgers seems to like that. So I expect him to bounce back to his typical 4,000-plus yard ways. As far as the playoffs, the AFC is really tough, but the Jets, if Rodgers is playing at an MVP-type level, which I expect, and they have an excellent defense, which they bring back from last season, I think they find a way to make it into the postseason, so I am placing this bet.
Finally, yes, we are on the same page. I am placing this bet as well. You have Aaron Rodgers. He surpassed 4,000 10 times in his career and just fell short by one game, per se, last season. He's gone over 4,000 4 of his last 5 seasons, and he's joining forces yet again with Nathaniel Hackett. He's going to have his finger on the pulse of this offense that he's going to be able to dictate. And he's got a plethora of weapons that he is going to be working with here in New York. So I am with you. I am placing this bet, and I do believe the Jets get into the playoffs as a wild card. I still have the Buffalo Bills winning that division, the AFC East, but I do have the Jets making it into the postseason as a wild card. Dre, this is where we've got to say hasta la vista, baby. You have a great weekend.
All right, you too. Happy Friday.
Fantastic. We go from Dre to Buster Olney. We got to talk some Major League Baseball. Enough with the back burner, right? It's hot stove. They are in the front burner right now because they are the league that at least is in action. So, Buster, let's start first and foremost in the NL West. And let's talk about the Diamondbacks, which, by the way, my favorite, best futures bet heading into this season was Arizona over 74.5 wins. So I am feeling really good about this Diamondbacks team. But what's surprising here is that the Dodgers are still the favorite to win the division. Are you finding some value in the Diamondbacks at 4-1?
Yeah, I would for sure. Not only because the Diamondbacks are so athletic, and in the years of these rules changes, the restrictions against defensive shift, the Diamondbacks, like the Tampa Bay Rays and some of the other more athletic teams, seem to be thriving under these conditions, with Corbin Carroll being the best example of that. But also, when we look at the Dodgers, yeah, they won 111 games last year, but it felt like this year they were essentially half in the way that they went in during the offseason, making one-year investments in players like J.D. Martinez, Noah Syndergaard, in part because the expectation is they're saving their dollars to go after Shohei Ohtani in this upcoming offseason. So this is not the juggernaut Dodger team that the Diamondbacks are competing against, the typical Dodger juggernaut team that we've seen in recent years. This is a more vulnerable Dodger team that's been made, I think, weakened even more because of some of the pitching injuries that they've suffered.
Yeah, big scare last night. I had them beating the White Sox. Of course, they came back at the end to beat them 5-4. All right, let's talk about some underachievers, right? And no more than the Padres, and you know I'm here in New York, boy, the Mets. Talk about the calls I get to my radio show. So the Mets already 10.5 games back to Atlanta. The Padres 7.5 games back to Arizona, who we just talked about. But they're still 10-1 for the division. So do you consider them in the mix for a wild card?
In the mix for the wild card, yes. As you and I speak, 4 games out in that regard. Certainly not the division. You think back to June 1st of last year, they were 10.5 games better since the Atlanta Braves. And Anita, since then, they're 21 games worse in the standings than Atlanta. And this year, a clear problem with their rotation. They invested $130 million in their starting pitching. To put that number into perspective, that's higher than the payrolls of 12 different teams. And yet, going into that Justin Verlander start against the Yankees on Wednesday, they had a combined ERA of 5.06, 26 out of 30 teams in baseball. And look, they're never going to really have a dynamic offense, especially with Pete Alonso sidelined at this point. Their bullpen was really hurt by the loss of Edwin Diaz. The rotation has to perform better. This team was designed to win through its rotation. And so if you don't see improved performances from Justin Verlander, from Max Scherzer, future Hall of Famers, it's hard for me to see the Mets making the playoffs.
So, Buster, last time you were on Bet, we talked about what a surprise the Pirates were at that point in time in the season. They're still leading the NL Central. but actually what's more interesting is the Cincinnati Reds, right? They're currently plus 650 to win the division and just sit one game back to the Pirates. So do you think that that's worth the play for the Reds to win the division?
Absolutely. Because the Cincinnati Reds right now might be the best team in the National League Central, which, let's face it, it's one of the two weakest divisions, especially with the Cardinals having an off year, the Chicago Cubs still sort of rebuilding. The NL Central is up for grabs, and what we've seen in recent weeks is the Cincinnati Reds gathering momentum. We talked about the athleticism of teams like the Diamondbacks and the Rays. Well, the Cincinnati Reds are right in there, and nobody embodies that more than young shortstop Elly De La Cruz, who's like a switch-hitting version of Fernando Tatis Jr., bringing the power, bringing the speed. They got good arms on that pitching staff. David Bell, their manager, does a terrific job. I'm very bullish on the Cincinnati Reds and where they are. And you could see Elly De La Cruz last week just bring so much energy, not only in home games, but I think with his teammates. He has a unique ability to do that, and I think the Reds are going to ride him the rest of the year.
All right, let's talk about the Atlanta Braves, right? World Series favorites since we last spoke. But of course, you've got the Astros, the Dodgers, the Rays have been unbelievable. The Rangers are just, what are they averaging? 8 runs a game? Just ridiculous. Would the Braves right now be your play to win the World Series?
Yes, no question, in part because of the strength and the depth of this team. They're rolling along right now, despite the fact that they don't have Max Fried, who they expect to get back from injury here sometime soon. And that'll begin to strengthen that rotation, which at times has been somewhat of an issue this year. I think once we get close to the trade deadline, Alex Anthopoulos, who added all those outfielders in 2021 before the Braves won the World Series, he's going to do his job, add some help to the bullpen. That rotation, that everyday lineup is absolutely stacked, especially now as center fielder Michael Harris is beginning to get into form and get more comfortable after probably being rushed back from injury. But I also think part of the reason why the Braves are a favorite is the American League is stacked. Getting through the American League playoffs is going to be like a steel cage match because you have the Tampa Bay Rays and the Orioles and the Yankees and the two teams in the West, the Rangers, the highest scoring team in baseball, the Astros, in addition to the winner of the American League Central. The American League seems to be much more competitive. And on the other hand, we talked about the National League, the Dodgers taking a step back, the Cardinals being such a big disappointment, the Mets, who we thought of as a favorite to make the playoffs before the year started, they're not playing well. The Phillies might be the most dangerous team to the Braves, but right now I think the Braves are the class of the National League, and as of today, they would be my pick to win the World Series.
Did you say the Orioles, Buster? Did you say the Orioles? Again, I'm rooting for them. My 4 years in Baltimore. I love that team, and I love what we've seen from them so far this season. All right, let's end on this. Last time we had you on the program, we were talking about the biggest surprise in Major League Baseball. And of course, it was the Rays and their hot start. We're almost midway through the season. What now has been the biggest surprise for you this season in Major League Baseball?
The Texas Rangers. Look, it looks like that they may improve their win total by something in the range of 25 to 30, and they're on track right now to win the American League West, the highest scoring team in baseball. I was texting a few days ago with Bruce Bochy, the manager of the Rangers, and asked him, look, did you think your offense was going to be this good? And he said, yeah, in spring training, he's looking at a lineup, headed by Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, and he thought we'd be pretty good. But what he did not anticipate was the depth of that offense. Guys like Jonah Heim, their catcher, who should be an all-star, rounding out from 1 to 9, a really dangerous lineup. And it's interesting because the Rangers, of course, their big investment during the course of the offseason was that huge contract with Jacob deGrom. He's out for the year after having elbow surgery, and they haven't missed a beat, right? And I also think Chris Young, because it's been so long since the Rangers have been relevant in October, you're going to see him be aggressive at the trade deadline. So if the Cleveland Guardians were to put out a Shane Bieber, for example, I could see the Rangers going all in, trying to plug a hole in that rotation, trying to add some depth, because this team has earned it. Bruce Bochy, Hall of Fame manager, a really dynamic lineup. This team would be dangerous if we get to October.
Yeah, it's really going to be fun as we get closer to the trade deadline to see who's going to be active and attractive. Buster, great stuff as always. We're so blessed to have you on Bet. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Anita.
All right, as always, we like to end the show with Before I Let You Go. We got to talk a little U.S. Open happening at the LA Country Club, so keep in mind we're out here on the East Coast. We still have a lot more golf to be played today, later on this afternoon, because it is only round 2. But let's look back before we look forward. Some of my picks and my plays heading into the U.S. Open. I had Hatton to win. I like Tony Finau and Brooks Koepka to finish in the top 10. I like Ricky Fowler to finish in the top 20 and Sam Burns to finish in the top 40. So where do we sit? Boy, my guy Ricky Fowler could be more happy, right? Tied for first right now. Shot a 62 yesterday. He still has not teed off yet. But interesting storyline around him. His putter, he trimmed it down about a half an inch and he changed the grip. He has been just he's been a magician with his putter so far in round 1. What can that continue? I believe that it does. Finau right now is tied for 7th, so that's looking good. Sam Burns tied for 22nd. That's looking good. Brooks Koepka tied for 36th. He's got to make some room. He's got to really start playing better golf. And I'm hoping Hatton can make the cut. The cut line right now, as we speak, is +1. Hatton is +4, and he literally just teed off right now. So what are some of the storylines right now at the LA Country Club and what's going on with the U.S. Open? These scores are ridiculous. The USGA is absolutely ticked off at themselves. Why? About a month ago, somebody at the LA Country Club said, hey, let's trim the rough. It's getting too long. So they trimmed the rough, but the weather conditions have been not ideal in regard to rough growing. The highs have been in the low 60s out there in LA. So the rough never grew. Also, you've got a marine layer right now that's affecting this course. So it's soft, it's playing easy. That's why we're seeing these numbers. 8 under, 6 under. It's ridiculous. This is not a typical US Open course. Also, today they changed the pin locations. They made them more difficult and they extended the course 200 yards. So what am I expecting as we head into the weekend? There's 2 more plays I'm going to deliver for you right now. One is Dustin Johnson. I like him to finish in the top 5. I also like him to finish in the top 10. He was 6 under yesterday, 4th in strokes gained total, 1st in tee to green, 2nd on approach. Great. He looked great with his wedge, but had a horrible second hole today where he scored an 8. He's going to bounce back. So I do like DJ, again, to finish in the top 5 and top 10. And Wyndham Clark, a guy who's having a phenomenal season so far, to finish in the top 5 as well. 6 under on Friday, 3rd in strokes gained total, 1st around the green. Data Golf gives him a 12% chance of winning. So those would be my 2 plays heading into the weekend. Good luck with that, and we'll see you on Monday.